an awful lot of opinion, but as far
Here
as
we
being
go. Okay, good evening, everybody. I tell you what's been happening today with me is that I been trying to sort my website out today, and also my radio station. As you know, we have now gone live on radio too, so that's going to be good. And we, at this moment in time, we got 1,866 people on right now on my radio station. How about that? Really good, isn't it?
fantastic.
Really good. We got Susan back tonight. I always like Susan coming back because she talks sense, really sense. You talk straight. And I want to talk about tonight about anger. Dealing with your anger, if we can, because everybody. I believe that everybody's got an anger issue. I don't know if you agree, but that's me. And what do you think?
I think, like stress, I think some anger sometimes is important. That if we are constantly just putting up with things and we're not boundaried and we just go along with things and we want a quiet life and we let everybody else have their say and put ourselves second, third, fourth, fifth in the queue, then we can end up being a doormat. Now, anger isn't necessarily an alternative to being a doormat, but sometimes a little appropriate anger where we say enough, stop it, can just raise that awareness of the other person, not to take us for granted, not to use and abuse us, that we're not just going to put up with anything. So I think a little anger is okay, but it's about identifying what our triggers are, whether we are angry a lot, whether we are reactive. So anything, and other people are looking at us going, what the heck's the matter with you? What was that about? So that we're inappropriately angry, or we're getting angry all the time, or whatever, then we need to sometimes have a look at what's going on with us. And anger is often about ego. Anger is often, somebody's put my nose out of joint, or they've not invited me, or they've not noticed I've done a great piece of work and complimented somebody. Actually, that was me, and so we can get our nose put out of joint and get angry or hurt or aggrieved about things. And it's kind of watching what's going on with ourselves, really.
It's tough, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, I get angry now and again over just petty stuff, really. If things are not going right for me, it's just, I felt like putting my laptop out the window earlier.
Sure.
But
it is often. I mean, the thing with anger is that in those situations is that if it is often the person who's left the dirty cup on the table, as opposed to somebody who's committed a massive slight or a massive offence, that gets the kicking off, because the excuse me, the cup left on the table is a thing that we will niggle about and will eat us up, and we'll get really angry and hurt, and how could they do that, and do they not appreciate what I've done? And that's the narrative that's often running. Whereas if it's something bigger, we would usually talk about it, deal with it at the time.
Yeah, I see. I'm sorry. I remember when I used to be married before. My wife was very particular. If it was any cups on the table, if the table was like in a mess, the dining room table, or anything in a mess. If anything was not put in a proper place, she just used to she used to get really angry.
But it's not about the mess. I mean, I had a client who, her husband was a multi-million-pound fund investor, massive lifestyle, earned a load of money, very, very busy, and she was a stay-at-home mum. She looked after the house, did a good job, and her husband used to bring home these piles of really important papers and just put them on the whole table. Come in and say, hi, darling, and put them on the whole table. And she just went out one day and pushed the whole lot and sent it flying. Now, it wasn't about the papers. It was the fact that she felt that he wasn't respecting, or indeed was disrespecting the effort that she was making. And she
Mm,
was feeling unseen and disregarded. And sometimes it's about having those conversations where we get those issues out in the open and are clear about what's going on, and both sides understand what the issues are.
yeah, yeah. Do you think men get angry more than women?
No, I don't. Not necessarily. I think men, because they have more testosterone, maybe are able to be louder and more ferocious in terms of. No, I think women are pretty good at giving as good as they get quite often. They might not see it as they can be hurtful, they can be sarcastic, they might be angry in rather different ways. But I think we're both capable of being angry. I think we just perhaps manifest it differently, and that's the deal. But it's about recognizing what your anger is about, recognizing what the story of your anger is, where it's come from, and checking out, are other people avoiding me? What's going on? Am I being angry too often? Are other people saying, my God, what's the matter with you? And giving me a wide berth and not talking about certain things. So we need to just really start to notice what is going on with us, because it can become a way of life being angry, and it's not very helpful, it's not constructive, and it's not certainly not healthy for
Mm,
us to be angry a lot.
mm. It's so difficult, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's because some people get angry, and then they go to then it's like they itch out afterwards. Sometimes, don't they? They kind of they get angry, they get a fist up, and some people like to hit people because they're angry, and they take it out on people. It's how can we control anger then? How can we do it?
I think people who do that, oh, it's out in the open now and all the rest of it, that's very, might not be able to help it, but it's quite self indulgent, and it can be very scary for children, for partners, for anybody else around, elderly people, in your general proximity. It can be very scary. And I think having a little bit more self control can be the order of the day. But there are certain ways. I mean, one thing I always say to people is, do you react or do you respond? So react is where you like the blue touch paper and step back. React, somebody says something and you go, oh, and you're off like a rocket.
Mm,
Whereas if you respond and you go, hang on a minute, what was that about? Because, I'm sure we've all had times where we've kicked off and the other person said,
mm,
no, I didn't mean that. I wasn't talking about that at all. I was meaning such and such a thing. And we go, oops, hang on a minute.
mm.
Sorry, I got the wrong end of the stick. They weren't listening properly. So I think ascertaining the facts is really, really important. And the second thing is checking out, what are we going to lose? I mean, if we're going to behave like that, what are we going to gain? That the person who goes into a restaurant or a shop or something and kicks off shouting and screaming at the member of staff about some perceived fault or flaw might get seen straight away to quieten everybody down and to shut them up, but they're not necessarily going to get the best result. And
Of course
so
not. No, no.
people are far more likely to help you if you go in and you say, look, I've got this problem. Can somebody help me with it? I need to talk it through. This is what's going on. Because odds are it's not going to be the person that you're speaking to anyway who is directly responsible. So it's about being a little bit more balanced and respectful of the people you're interacting with. Recognize how stressed you are as well. If we're in a particularly difficult situation, we've got a sick member of the family, or we're worried about our job, or we're not feeling particularly 100%, it might be that we're not sleeping well and that we're a lot more irritable than normal. So being angry might be a quicker reaction than normal. So again, flagging it up and saying, look, I'm not myself at the minute, sorry guys, can we just take a rain check on this and maybe talk about it another day, or let me think about it? So remembering you're an adult, and taking a step back, and
Mm,
not just literally in giving yourself free reign to say and do and behave how you want.
mm. I don't think you know. Sometimes we like to be pleasing people, and I think some of us like to be pleased, and we don't want to say sorry, no, and we like to please everybody. But now and again, we do need to stand back, don't we, and say, look, hold on for a second. I've got a few problems at the moment. I'm going for, and I think we need to come out more and tell people how we feel instead of
I agree.
putting inside. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, the whole thing about saying yes to everybody for everything is all well and good. Perceptually, we might be seen as a nice guy, but other people don't particularly recognize what's going on in our lives either. So they might think we're okay because we keep saying yes. They might not understand that we're really, really busy and
Mm.
need to uh, perhaps say no or not yes. But we can't. If somebody asks us to do something and we say yes, we can't blame them for trusting that our yes is genuine and we meant it. So we have to take responsibility for our own answers. And I
Mm.
think sorry is one of the worst words we can use. Not saying sorry, I can't do it, but just saying, I'm afraid at the moment it's not convenient for me, but leave it with me and ask me in a few days' time, or I can't manage this week, but speak to me later on in the week and we'll have another conversation. But saying sorry is a dodgy word for my view, because I think
All right.
sorry,
Okay.
it infers you're wrong. It infers you're apologizing. It infers that you are doing something that you're not happy about. And I think saying something rather better is, I'm afraid it's not convenient, or I can't do that at the minute, or I'll have to get back to you, or let me, there's lots of other
All
ways
right.
of
Okay.
saying no that aren't aggressive, that aren't bolshy, that aren't rude, but can actually buy you a little bit of time. And also let people know how busy you are and that you're not just there to say yes all the time.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Because I'm sort of a person like that. People. I've been so busy, and people kind of like, and when I say I do it, I will do it, but it's like I have a list. So I thought, like, put that on the list, and I will do it, but it's just kind of like it's on that list. So I wait for it to kind of like to go down, and I think, right, that's what I've got to deal with. You know what I mean?
Well, so long as people who are asking you know where they are on the list. I mean, if somebody, I get people asking me for articles and things. And if I say to them, yes, I'll do it, but then it doesn't arrive for 4 weeks, I know they're going to get a bit upset with me. So I would say, yes, I will do it, but I've got few more writing things on the minute. How urgent is it? Well, I'll get it with you, and I usually say you'll
Mm.
have it by the end of the weekend at the latest or something, so people can manage their diaries and what they need to do as well. So we can't just leave people hanging. It's important that other people are included and equally respected, I guess, in the grand scheme of things.
Right. So we should be more open, shouldn't we? Really, we should be
Yeah,
more open.
yeah.
You know, and not the one. Not just the kind of like the little word sorry, but but to be open and say, I'm busy at the moment, things like that. So yeah, that's
Yeah, for
I,
sure.
I can understand that. At least I've learnt something. Actually, I've learnt something. Hello, because I did say sorry to you earlier.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? We just sometimes don't think about things in a certain way. And I know a lot of my clients say to me, never thought of it like that. And it's not rocket science, it's not the end of the world what I'm saying, but often it is just about having a few moments to ponder and reflect and take a little bit of time to review what we're doing. And is that working for me? Some things we just do all our lives and we never really check them out. And
Yeah,
sometimes having an opportunity to just go, ping, that's not really quite the best way to do that.
yeah, yeah. So how can one kind of like, because everybody's got some sort of anger problems. They've got relationships, at work probably with the COVID at the moment. People's lost their jobs again, or other things, and it goes on. The anger goes on. So how can we kind of like look back on it and say, right, how can we express our feelings more without being judged?
Well, I think a huge part of this is to actually say, is getting angry at this going to solve anything for me? Now, particularly with the COVID and all the rest of it that's going on at the minute, there are a lot of things that we can't do anything about, and it's a good idea to say, okay, if I can't negotiate with something, there's not much point me kicking the wall.
Mm.
If I keep kicking the wall, all that's going to happen is I'm going to hurt my foot, I'm going to hurt my ankle, and I might end up with a damaged wall that's going to cost me a load of money to fix. So what's the point, you know? So I think that sometimes it's reining it back in and saying, okay, what can I do about this? What about this? Is there scope for me to manage or negotiate or do slightly differently or whatever? And I think a huge part of that is having a routine where we have a regular routine where we perhaps try and do things in the main. Talked about this before, you know, even getting up and having a shower can be huge, where we start feeling a bit more in control. We start feeling cleaner, fresher, ready for the day. Whether it's getting out and doing a bit of a walk in the morning, whether it's getting out your journal and keeping a journal, whether it's baking or getting out your crafts, whatever it is that works for you, doing things that you invest a little bit of time in, and you actually give yourself credit and say, well done, you. Well done,
Mm.
you, for doing that. You've made an effort. You know, it might not, for some people, just getting out of the house and walking to the corner shop for a bottle of milk might be huge. They might not have been out for days. So recognizing those little mini successes for what they are, and giving yourself credit for it, because each day is just, at the minute, is, as far as I'm concerned, each day is getting through, each day is getting by, each day is trying to charter some sort of success and taking care of yourself in the mix of that, you know, I know I'm going to bed a little bit earlier. I know I'm trying to eat healthier. I know I'm doing my walk in the morning early on, even though some days it feels like blooming cold and I don't know if I want to do it, but I kind of get myself out of the house and do it. And I'm always glad when I have.
Mm.
So it's not being heroic, it's just being committed to doing things that give your day a little bit of structure, a little bit of purpose, a little bit of
Mm.
success in there every day.
Yeah, yeah. I love it now. I love going out on my scooter, and
Yeah.
it's just kind of like it just gets me out. And my friend of mine from church, she's given me some dog biscuits. So what I do, I go down the. I don't eat the dog biscuits. I go down, I go down the cycle track, and I'm giving them out to all the dogs, you know, and everybody. And it's nice. It's nice to do something different than what you've been doing before.
Yeah,
I totally
absolutely.
agree. I totally agree.
And
But it's
when you come back, then you feel you've earned your breakfast or your lunch or that mug of cocoa or whatever it is. You feel you've earned it. You've done some, whatever else happens in the rest of the day. You've done something. You've been out. You've got some vitamin. You've got a bit of daylight. It's all good news. And
oh
and
yes.
anyway, daylight improves our mood, so it is important that we try and get as much serotonin as we can at the minute.
When I used to get angry, I used to with anger because I was really bad with anger issues. But now when I went to see my therapist, she said to me, when you kind of like get angry, just leave the room,
Okay.
right? She said just leave the room and go somewhere for about 10 minutes and calm down and come back in again
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
explain to the person why you were angry for. And
Yep.
I'm thinking, okay, and actually it did work, you know,
Yeah.
because
And some people do have a code word. So some people might have a ridiculous code word like mushroom or something that means nothing. So when they find their buttons are being pushed and they're getting really, oh, you know, a bit defensive, a bit under attack, a bit hurt, a bit cornered, a bit, you know, feeling negative, then maybe say mushroom. And then the other person knows, and then they stop it. And if they both agree and they both want to work it out, you know, there's lots of little ways, but certainly leaving the room is to cool off is important.
oh
But
yeah, yeah.
it's finding ways that work for each person, that give you back some control and help you feel okay. That, why was I overreacting that way? What was that all about? What was it that pushed my buttons? Why did I do that?
Yeah, we don't like going. We don't like going to bed on an argument. Me and my wife.
Okay,
We
that's
don't.
nice.
We don't. And what usually happens is if we are having a bit of an argument, everything goes off. Television, everything goes off, and we just sit there and we talk about it. And if
Good.
one doesn't agree, like it's usually me, I must admit, I put my hands up. Then I've got it stops, then later on we come back and we deal with it again. And if I feel really angry about it, I just kind of like, I just deal it with myself. I just go out somewhere, and just go into a corner and say, and deal with, just calm down for a little while and then come back in again.
An
So,
interesting question might be why am I getting so angry about this? What is it about this that is making me so angry? Is it because I'm feeling disrespected? Is it because I'm feeling misunderstood? Is it because I'm not feeling loved? Is it because I'm feeling rejected? Checking out what's going on, because often anger is where we take things personally and
mm,
they're not necessarily meant personally.
no, they're
So
not. No, no. So,
yeah,
someone's only got to say boo to me, Susan, right? Sometimes. And what usually happens, I'll just go off on a
yeah.
thing. You know what I mean? And people who know me now, on friends on Facebook or whatever, people just say, okay, he's having a little bit of downtime or he's a bit pingy. We'll forget about him and we'll come back and chat with him later on. Because they know me by now, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Uh,
How do you feel about them having to walk around you like that?
well, it's not nice, is it?
Not particularly.
No, I don't want them to walk around me like that. Oh,
So, I
you
mean,
know,
it could be that there's some relevance to actually having a look and saying, hang on a minute, what is this triggering in me? Why am I having to be treated with kid gloves? Why are people having to give me half an hour's space? What's going on? I'm not a kid, so it might
mm,
be that there's some argument for saying, okay, let me just have a look at what's being triggered in me and why I'm reacting in this way, because it's not a very appropriate reaction to something that
mm,
is perhaps another person's point of view. They're entitled to their point of view. I might not agree with them. You might not agree with them, but they're entitled to say it or do it or think it. And we don't want them changing their point of view for fear of the backlash from you and me or whatever. So sometimes we have to just say, we have to suck it up a bit and say,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, 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 yeah.
I hear you. I'm afraid I'm reacting a bit. Let me just what is triggering inside of me? Where's that coming from? And you often find that those emotions go back quite a long way. You often, in my experience, I mean, I do a lot of abuse. I specialize in abuse, and I know that for a lot of people, anger is coming from an inelegant way of trying to express our feelings. We're trying to say how we're feeling, we're trying to say what we're thinking, but we perhaps haven't got the words. And that might be because those early associations were made when we're almost pre-verbal, before we had
Mm,
logic or rationale or the ability to formulate sentences and explain ourselves. So it might just be literally going into pure emotion, pure hurt, pure rejection or negativity, and we're
mm,
just kicking off and going, oh, and we can't, and that's, I mean, the truth is, it's the equivalent of a temper tantrum in a child in a supermarket. And
mm,
if that child kicks off long and loud enough, gets given the sweets, eventually that child, it will learn that if it kicks off long and loud enough, it will get the sweets. So
mm.
it's about learning, needing to unlearn that, really.
Yeah, let's see what messages we got. Um, at what stage do you give up on angry, violent person? On an angry, violent person?
I guess, Paul, you have to, I mean, see how receptive they are to what your attempts are to retrieve the relationship. What role do they have in your life? um how angry, how violent are they? I mean, the truth is, some people are, I think, in turn, yeah, fair enough, three chances. So it depends how, at the end of the day, sort of giving them a red light, and saying, look, this can't carry on. I need to be treated with better respect. I can't, warning them that you're going to walk away.
Mm,
I think sometimes we have to say, this relationship is not working for me. And I don't feel that you're respecting me. I don't feel you're respecting what we have. So it's having that conversation.
mm, mm. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Look, you know what, Susan? We come to the end again.
Again, how quick was that? Excellent. Okay, well, lovely talking to you as usual.
Okay, and I will speak to you later on.
Okie
And
dokie.
okay, thank you very much again for tonight.
My
That was,
pleasure.
and yes, and I'm very sorry what happened earlier.
It just tech. What can we say about tech? It's always a difficult one, isn't it? But anyway, always a pleasure to get through eventually.
Thank you very much.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you for your time. That was Susan Leigh, guys, and what a lovely person she is. Okay, I'm going to be on about 9 o'clock again in a minute, so stand by and take care. Bye bye.